Good morning. Welcome to today's town hall, Building Our Future Infrastructure. My name is Penelope Rue, and I'm District Director for North Carolina's 12th Congressional District. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's discussion. This morning, you'll hear from Congresswoman Alma Adams and area stakeholders regarding the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is the largest long-term investment in America's infrastructure in nearly a century. The bipartisan infrastructure law will create jobs and address our ailing infrastructure. It's a critical first step towards a future we all desire and we deserve. So to get started, we have messages from the mayors of the northern towns of the district, including newly elected Mayor Melinda Bales, our host for the broadcast from Huntersville Town Hall today, as well as Davidson Mayor Rusty Knox and Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam.
Hello, I'm Mayor Rusty Knox, and I bring greetings from myself, our town board, and from our 15,106 residents in Davidson. Davidson has always been committed to controlling our destiny as a distinct, sustainable, and sovereign small town. Having Davidson College here, which is highly selective in liberal arts and constantly ranks highest in the nation, both in academics and in basketball. Davidson's priorities include affordable housing and equity, maintaining our small town character, and protecting our environment and natural resources. I'm looking forward to the future and how we can work together both locally, on a state level, and on a federal level. Thank you again.
Hello, I'm Mayor Woody Washam from Cornelius, and I am very proud to bring you greetings on behalf of our Town Board of Commissioners and the almost 32,000 residents of our great town. In Cornelius, North Carolina, we take pride in the way we treat each other. This is a town full of good neighbors, and they all know what's right and work real hard on doing the right thing to serve mankind. We never back down from a challenge. We embrace the lessons that each day teaches. We go the extra mile, and you might ask why. That's because that's simply the Cornelius way. When people think of Cornelius, they likely think of the breathtaking views of Lake Norman that can be seen all over the place. We incredibly are blessed to be one of the towns that gets to marvel in the wonder of the lake every day. We're also known for our exceptional parks and greenways that offer residents and visitors top-notch backdrops for all their favorite recreational activities. Last but certainly not least, we're known for the dedication to our community, whether it's recognizing an issue with the roads and jumping to find a solution, or coming up with a new program that will truly benefit all the residents of Cornelius as we strive to do what's best for our folks day in and day out. Thank you, Representative Adams, for what you do for our district. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mayor Melinda Bales, and I'm honored to bring greetings on behalf of the Town Board of Commissioners and the 61,376 residents who call Huntersville, North Carolina home. We are honored to host this town hall event for United States Congresswoman Alma Adams today, and we are appreciative of the commitment and work that she has done for the 12th District of North Carolina at a national level, as well as her advocacy on our behalf with both the legislative and executive branches of the North Carolina state government. Her help worked to secure $16.8 million in federal and state funds through the American Rescue Plan Act for our community. For this work, we are truly thankful. Huntersville's priorities continue to be our commitment to smart and sustainable growth, addressing infrastructure needs, and ensuring that Huntersville's quality of life remains at the forefront of our decision-making. We look forward to hearing about how we can work with our local, state, and federal government partners on these and other important issues that affect our community. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome, Congresswoman Adams.
Representative Adams serves on the Committee on Financial Services, Committee on Education and Labor, the Committee on Agriculture, and is chairwoman of the Committee on Education and Labor's Subcommittee on Workforce Protections, and is vice chairwoman of the Committee on Agriculture. First elected to Congress in 2014, she is serving her 4th full term in the House of Representatives. As a 40-year educator, Congresswoman Adams has dedicated her career to improving the lives of young people and her community. She is a tenacious champion for the 12th Congressional District. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Alma Adams.
Thank you. Thank you, Penelope, and good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm Congresswoman Alma Adams, and I am so proud to represent the town of Huntersville, North Carolina, Mecklenburg County, the city of Charlotte, the towns of Davidson, Cornelius, Pineville, Matthews, and Mint Hill in the United States Congress. I'm honored to be in Huntersville today as we talk about infrastructure. And so thank you, Mayor Bales and Mayor Pro Tem Stacy Phillips, and to all of the members of the Huntersville Town Commission, and Commissioner Partey, I'm welcoming you as well. Thank you all for having me here today. I do want to bring you greetings this morning from on behalf of the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, Majority Whip Clyburn, Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, as well as Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and 59 members of the caucus known as the conscience of the Congress. I have members of my staff with me today from my district office, Penelope Rue, who you just heard from, who is our district director, other district staff, Sandra Brown, who is my operations, chief of operations, Kim Radliff, Avery Bonifetti, excuse me, Sam Spencer, our comms director, Briasha Buggs, Aisha Pratt, Ellen McInnes, and Julian Holland. Thank you all for being here. And from my DC office, my chief of staff, John Christie, will be joining us on Zoom. My legislative analyst, Gordon Holsberg, will be participating here on site in Huntersville today. I'm honored that we are joined by the mayors from our northern towns in the district, as well as our panelists for today. Ebony Pittman, Deputy Secretary, and Bo Memory, Chief Operating Officer, both from the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Haley Gentry, Aviation Director for the Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Allison Neely, the American Rescue Plan Act Program Manager for Mecklenburg County. And John Lewis, Chief Executive Officer of CATS, the Charlotte Area Transit System. So to my esteemed colleagues, to our many county, town, and city officials who continue to work diligently on behalf of our communities, thank you for your service. It is the rent we pay. I want to thank you also for stepping up to lead during unprecedented challenges, and thank you all for the work that you do to help our towns grow better and grow stronger. Our entire community, especially our essential workers, our frontline healthcare workers, and the Mecklenburg County Health Department have been on the front lines of this pandemic. North Mecklenburg has faced its own challenges. The Colonial Pipeline spill here in Huntersville, the unsolved ocular melanoma supercluster in the Lake Norman area, asbestos remediation in Davidson's west side, and the consistent strain of growth. You know, back in the 1980s, when I started my journey in public service on the Greensboro School Board, the town of Davidson had fewer than 4,000 residents, and Huntersville had fewer than 3,000 people. Cornelius had fewer than 2,000, and so these three towns now have over 100,000 residents, and Mecklenburg County has grown to nearly over 1.1 million residents. And that's a big change in fewer than 4 decades. And that's why it's important to continue to address the affordable housing crisis, build a transit system that will serve our community and our economy, and make sure that our towns have the infrastructure they need to be connected to jobs and opportunities. And you know, these aren't partisan issues. They're not political either. They're issues that we must address to grow better and grow stronger. And that's why I'm so very proud that to have supported and voted for the bipartisan infrastructure framework that was also supported by our senators, Senator Tillis and Senator Burr, signed into law by President Biden. As one of our most important legislative accomplishments of the 117th Congress, this bill provides necessary funding for infrastructure projects, including over $9 billion for our state and our community. And I cannot emphasize this enough. The bipartisan infrastructure law is transformational, not only for our nation, but especially for our state and our community. North Carolina is receiving almost $9 billion in new funding. We're going to receive over $7.5 billion to repair our roads and our bridges. We're trying to get the slide up, okay? And we're going to, that's money that we can put towards important transportation projects like the Red Line to connect Davidson, Cornelius, Huntersville, and Mooresville to Charlotte. We're going to receive almost a $500 million for our airports. And I'm very proud to share that most of the sum of that money, some $215 million, will be going to our own Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Additionally, North Carolina is receiving more than $1 billion to repair our aging water infrastructure. And so that means that we'll be able to fix our water mains and sewer pipes before they burst and force us to have to boil our water. And that's not all. Our new law has expanded the capital investment grant program with over $15 billion in new funding. And that's the program that we use to help build the blue line for the light rail. And that's the program that we're going to rely on in the future to keep expanding our public transportation network. Additionally, we've secured almost $6 billion in this bill for Charlotte and Katz to seek new zero emission buses, because you should be able to take a zero emissions village rider from Huntersville Town Hall and connect with anywhere in the county. I am so very proud of the once in a generation investments that we're making in our community with this bill. They're going to help us grow better and grow stronger. And as your Congresswoman, I promise you that in me, you will always have a fighter in Washington who will help bring federal resources back home. My door is always open to our towns and our elected officials, and I want to hear from you about the infrastructure that we need, because there's still a lot of work that we have to do. I want to thank you for having me here today, and God bless you, and God bless our county and our state and the United States of America. Now, I am honored to introduce our panel, and we have some great panelists here today. As Deputy Secretary for Business Administration, Ebony Pittman directs the North Carolina Department of Transportation's Office of Civil Rights and the Office of Historically Black Colleges and Universities Outreach, and oversees purchasing and facilities management. Bo Memory oversees the Division of Highways, Ferry Division, Aviation Division, Rail Division, the Integrated Mobility Division, Public Transportation Division, the Division of Planning and Programming, and the Office of Communications, Community Outreach, and Public Engagement. Haley Gentry is Aviation Director for the city's Aviation Department, which owns and operates Charlotte Douglas International Airport. She began her career as an intern 30 years ago, and in October, she was named to her new leadership role, which makes her the first woman to lead Charlotte as its Chief Executive Officer and Aviation Director at the airport's 87-year history. Allison Neely, American Rescue Plan Program Manager for Mecklenburg County, is responsible for leading and managing all aspects of the ARPA funding awarded to our county in Mecklenburg. And John Lewis has led the Charter Area Transit System, CATS, since 2015 as its Chief Executive Officer. CATS provides mobility options to over 80,000 people daily through bus, light rail, and streetcar. He provides strategic leadership, focusing on our long-term transit plan, enhancing customer service to attract and retain customers, and ensuring a safe and reliable transit system for the region. The folks that I have just announced will present in the order that I have introduced them. And so Ms. Pittman will begin.
Thank you and good morning. I'd like to thank Congresswoman Adams for hosting this great event and giving us an opportunity to speak with you. I am Ebony Pittman, Deputy Secretary for Business Administration at the North Carolina Department of Transportation. As she mentioned, I have the privilege of working with the DOT's Office of Civil Rights, the Office of Historically Black Colleges and Universities Outreach, as well as Purchasing and Facilities Management. In our agency, we are focused on how we can meet the many changing infrastructure needs of our diverse population. We're in one of the fastest growing states in the nation, and NCDOT must be prepared to meet North Carolina's future transportation needs and challenges. One of the department's priorities is to encourage equity and diversity in transportation. We are working to ensure our small and women-owned and minority-owned businesses are aware of the many transportation contracting opportunities available across North Carolina. We want to have businesses of all types, small and large, to help us do our work. In the last year, we have been more intentional in our efforts in how we proactively reach minority and women-owned businesses. Progress has already been made on these fronts. Since last summer, our Office of Civil Rights has helped us host quarterly outreach meetings across the state for disadvantaged business enterprises. Hundreds of people from more than 100 firms have participated in the meetings so far. We have numerous contracting opportunities at DOT, but often small business owners are not aware of this fact. These events help us to ensure that firms know about the contracting opportunities we have available and how they can work with us. Another round of outreach events is scheduled for Saturday, February the 5th, and also on Saturday, February the 19th. For those of you who own and operate a business, we encourage you to participate in these events if you can. For more information about these and other outreach opportunities, please check out our website at ncdot.gov. We are also sponsoring highway construction trade academies hosted by community-based organizations around the state to train and place minorities and women into employment. These efforts demonstrate our renewed commitment department-wide to grow the number of disadvantaged businesses we work with, increase the capacity of the firms we already do business with, and ensure these businesses are resilient enough to handle whatever challenges come their way. We all have to work together to see this happen, and we will continue to open the doors for opportunity. We look forward to working with you, and please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions. Again, we appreciate your time this morning, and we thank you, Congresswoman Adams, for giving us the opportunity to provide a brief update today. And now I'll turn things over to our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Bo Memory.
Thank you and good morning. Again, I'm Bo Memory, the North Carolina Department of Transportation's Chief Operating Officer. I too would like to thank Congresswoman Adams for hosting this event and giving us an opportunity to speak with you. This morning, I'll give you an update on where we are with the Federal Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act. But first, I'd like to give you a quick overview of the department. NCDOT impacts the lives of every North Carolinian. DOT oversees 81,000 miles of road, the second largest system in the nation. We maintain more than 18,000 bridges and culverts. And as you know, transportation is much more than roads and bridges. Our programs span all facets of transportation, including aviation, ferries, rail, public transportation, bike and pedestrian, and many more. We really do affect the lives of every North Carolinian. And that's why it's so important that we stay committed to finding new and innovative ways to deliver the transportation system people want, need, and will use. Our world is changing, and NCDOT must plan for what roads, bridges, and other transportation infrastructure will look like in the future. That includes how we fund it and how we build it. The people we serve expect infrastructure that is resilient to changing weather patterns and ready for emerging technologies. NCDOT welcomes the passage of the recent Bipartisan Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act. We appreciate that our federal leadership recognizes the importance of transportation infrastructure so people can access jobs, healthcare, and educational opportunities. We're thankful for any investment that help North Carolina's growing transportation needs. These federal infrastructure funds will provide at least $410 million in new funding each year for the next 5 years for highways, bridges, and transit. These new federal dollars will help offset some material, right-of-way, and labor cost increases impacting our project costs. It will also support our efforts to build resilient infrastructure. It's too early to tell how the funding will impact specific projects, but NCDOT is committed to working with local communities and planning organizations to deliver solutions that meet their needs. I also want to mention our workforce development efforts. The recent storms have shown us how COVID-19 and the staffing shortages impacting every industry right now are also affecting us. We know that a lot of our workforce will be retiring in the next year. 1,200 employees are eligible to retire from NCDOT by this November. And as Ebony highlighted, one of our top priorities is, in this process is to ensure our workforce represents our population. Again, thank you, Congresswoman Adams, for hosting us this morning, and we look forward to being part of this panel.
Hello, my name is Haley Gentry, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Charlotte Douglas International Airport. I'm pleased to be with you today and would like to take a few minutes to share about the airport and its importance to our local economy. Some of you may not realize that Charlotte Douglas is the 6th busiest airport in the country and served approximately 43 million passengers in 2020. This is about, 2021. This is about 86% of normal 2019 passenger levels. CLT is home to American Airlines' second largest hub, which consistently propelled Charlotte's recovery during the pandemic. As the airport operator, we were grateful for federal stimulus dollars, which further enabled Charlotte to survive the worldwide health crisis. These funds were essential to maintaining the operation despite financially devastating conditions for most airport stakeholders. We were also excited to receive $215 million from the recently approved federal infrastructure bill. These funds will be distributed over 5 years and will be used to support our Destination CLT initiative, which includes extensive terminal and airfield development. So what makes Charlotte Douglas International a good investment? Charlotte Douglas contributes $24.6 billion annually to our local economy. This translates to 4% of the state's gross domestic product. As the busiest airport in both Carolinas, CLT is moving our region forward. This federally funded improvements will enable us to prepare our future, remaining a highly competitive airport. As the region's #1 economic development tool, we recognize that the economic vitality of our community depends on our ability to deliver cost-effective, competitive services. Furthermore, being one of the largest employment centers directly ties us to the quality of life for so many of our friends, families, and neighbors. To learn more about to learn more about how we connect people and businesses to a world of possibilities, please check out the airport's website and social media channels under the banner of Connections Just Don't Happen at the Terminal. Thank you, Congresswoman Adams. We are fortunate to have such a champion in our corner. We sincerely appreciate your leadership and ongoing support.
My name's Allison Neely, and I'm American Rescue Plan Program Manager for Mecklenburg County. Over the last 2 years, Mecklenburg County has worked hard to provide emergency assistance to the residents. In 2020, the county received approximately $39 million of CARES funding, which was used to address the emergency needs of both the communities impacted by the pandemic and local businesses. The county has also received emergency rental assistance funding from both direct from the Treasury and also from the state. And that has been used to pay both rent and utility assistance for residents. Most recently, the county has received approximately $215 million from the American Rescue Plan Act. This funding, under the direction of the Board of County Commissioners in the Mecklenburg County, will be used to provide transformational long-term benefits to the residents of Mecklenburg County. To do this, the county has developed 5 priority levels that the county will be used to achieve. The first being the behavioral health and health equity, affordable housing and homelessness, workforce and economic development, parks, environmental and infrastructure, and childcare and early childhood development. For more information on our strategic recovery plan and also on the application process for ARPA funding, you can reach out to MECNC/COVID relief on the Mecklenburg County website.
Good morning. My name is John Lewis. I have the honor to serve as the Chief Executive Officer for the Charlotte Area Transit System. Congresswoman Adams, I want to thank you for bringing together, giving us the opportunity to address your constituents today and illustrating the important partnership between the federal, state, and local level in providing the necessary infrastructure, projects, and programs that deliver mobility options to all of our citizens. We at CATS have been working diligently since early 2000 to deliver on the 2030 rail system plan. We were successful in opening the South Corridor of the Blue Line in 2007. We followed that up with the Blue Line extension, which opened in spring of 2018, a $1.2 billion project that was open on time and under budget. And working with our federal partners, we were able to convince the Federal Transit Administration to reward our good stewardship of the public dollar that allowed us to keep a portion of that $50 million that we saved on the project to reinvest in our communities to deliver other infrastructure projects. In 2015, we opened the first line of the Gold Line, and just this past year, in the August of 2020, we opened phase 2 of the Gold Line. Right now, CATS is focused diligently on planning and engineering of the Silver Line, which will be the largest public infrastructure project in North Carolina. Upwards of $6 billion, 26 or 29 miles of rail if we extend into a regional project with our neighbors in Gaston County and in South to Stallings and the Indian Trail. And that illustrates the important partnership between federal, state, and local partners in delivering these projects. We are very excited about the opportunities that the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act will bring to us. This is a generational opportunity for us. We are right now at the Metropolitan Transit Commission, my board of directors, in which we met last night. Mayor Bales sat in on her first meeting. We're discussing how we continue to move the 2030 plan forward. As I mentioned earlier, the Silver Line continues on its preliminary planning, engineering, and design. That project will connect Matthews to Uptown, to the airport, and beyond. Beyond that, we continue our conversations with very important partners in Norfolk Southern Railroad and North Carolina Railroad to reach an agreement that will allow us to move the very important Red Line rail project forward. And we're also continuing our planning, design, and operations of our I-77 bus rapid transit. With the opening of the I-77 variable pricing lanes, we have been able to deliver very reliable, efficient, and effective express bus service to the residents and our customers that live in the towns of Huntersville, Davidson, and Cornelius. And our MTC board members are keenly focused on continuing that investment while conversations on the red line continue. Lastly, I will say thank you once again, Congresswoman Adams, for the investment that helped us get through the pandemic. CATS has received over $200 million in CARES and ARP funding that helped us bridge that gap while our country, our nation, and the world deals with the challenging outcomes of a worldwide pandemic. This has allowed us, while our ridership has dropped significantly, as commuting patterns have changed, as employment practices have changed, people are working virtually, to focus our mobility services to support those frontline employees that continue to serve us on a daily basis, despite the challenges that they face from a health standpoint day to day. Thank you for your efforts on all of our behalves at the federal level, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. Thank you.
Right. Okay, let me just thank all of our panelists, those who are here with us in person and those who joined us virtually. It certainly gives us an opportunity to not only bring the message to the community, but thank you for letting us know how you're going to use the investments, how you're using them. You know, we always want to know when the money comes out, what's going to happen. And so we're just delighted that our region, our county of Mecklenburg and all of the towns that connect here will benefit from this investment that we've made. It is transformational. And it is an investment over 5 years, but we're going to be able to do a lot with it. So we're going to get ready for Q&A. I have my staffer here from Washington, D.C., my legislative analyst, Gordon Holzberg, and I'm going to have him join me up here. But also on Zoom, my chief of staff. You know, we cannot do this work. I certainly cannot do this work without the support of my staff. And so I'm going to have my chief of staff, John Christie, who is in our DC office to moderate this session. And we will try to address your questions. If we don't get to all of your questions, we'll make sure that we record them, and we will give you a response later. So again, I want to thank the panelists, and you may have a question that you'll direct to any of them. They'll be prepared to answer them as well. So John Christie, I'm yielding to you right now.
All right. Thank you, Congresswoman. And thank you to all of our attendees this morning and to our esteemed panelists. As stated, I am John Christie, Congresswoman Adams' Chief of Staff here in Washington. And we have now come to the portion of today's proceedings where we want to hear from you. We have folks online who can answer any questions you may have about the bipartisan infrastructure bill and what it'll mean for you and our community here in Mecklenburg County. I'll remind everyone that the questions answered live by the Congresswoman and our panelists will all be related to infrastructure. So if you have any other questions, those will be answered using the Q&A function by our legislative team. We have a limited amount of time today, so if we don't get to your question, again, please feel free to follow up with us. The session is recorded. We'll have a list of all the questions that were sent. And additionally, our contact information, our office contact information, will be given at the end of this morning's program. So without further ado, Congresswoman panelists, are we ready?
We're ready.
All right. So for the first question, I'm going to refer back to some of the questions that we received from folks who RSVP'd. They sent in some comments, some questions prior to this morning's program. So I think this first question will frame our conversation here. First question is, what is the bipartisan infrastructure law and what does it do for the country?
Well, let me just begin by saying that it is transformational. It's a bill that we started with because the president saw the need across this country to improve our infrastructure that was really breaking down roads and bridges, broadband, and it's going to help us move into another century. But more than that, it's going to help us make sure that our communities are safer. Now, I have Gordon Holzberg here with me, and he can give you the technical definition for that. He's my tech man.
Absolutely. Thank you, Congresswoman. Good morning, everyone. Specifically to answer the question, building off what the Congresswoman said, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, HR 3684, is two things. First, it's a 5-year reauthorization of the surface transportation laws in this country. That means that for the first time in almost 10 years, our local transit agencies and our state departments of transportation have assured funding. They know what's coming to their budgets every year from the federal government. At the same time, it's also an expansion, building new programs, putting new funding to work, replacing and modernizing our energy grid, investing billions in broadband and public transit. As the Congresswoman said, this is transformational investment that we're going to see the benefits from for years and decades to come.
Thank you, Gordon. Let me just add here, when he mentioned broadband, we know, because we've been in this pandemic now going on into the third year, it appears, that there were a number of deficits across the country and the county. Students who were working from home, trying to study from home, could not get connected. Workers couldn't get connected. Farmers even couldn't get connected. And so broadband is going to become very, very critical to make sure that everyone who needs to be connected is connected. And this is the first major investment in broadband. This is all, this money is going nationwide, but we're going to get a nice chunk here in Mecklenburg County.
All right, very good. Okay, so we have a couple of questions from attendees that relate to the needs of commuters who live north of Charlotte. Of course, Huntersville. One question from a Richard Green. His question is, would the needs of commuters from the north of Charlotte better be served by express or electric buses or by a commuter rail service?
Is the question, will it be served by buses, or I'm trying to,
So the question is more concerned, is sort of a asking if there's a choice between express buses or commuter rail service, which one will be more effective in getting folks north from Charlotte into the city?
Great question. Our 2030 plan actually encompasses both. As the North Mecklenburg County continues to grow, the Congresswoman gave some figures earlier of how fast and how dynamic Huntersville, Davidson, and Cornelius have grown over the last few decades. We believe that the traveling patterns of people who live in North Meck will be best served by a rapid, frequent, and all day long express bus service that can operate on anywhere from 15-minute service during peak time to maybe 30-minute service off time. Now, at the same time, we believe there's also a need for a very effective and efficient rapid rail service that will make faster connections between Huntersville, Davidson, Cornelius, and Uptown Charlotte. And that is the Red Line project that we are hoping to move forward with. Now, once we begin, the great thing about moving on that two-phase approach is that we can continue to provide express bus service mobility options today through our I-77 project while we continue to work out the issues associated with the Red Line. When we get to that point where we have solutions there, it's still going to take us between 5 to 7 years to build the corridor out. And so we have a short-term approach through our express bus and commuter bus service, and then a long-term solution with the Red Line. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. John?
Right. Mr. Lewis, I may have to put you to work one more time because we actually have another question that relates, I think, to what you mentioned as far as the red line. It's a concern about the fact that there are no sidewalks to bus stops in North Mecklenburg, no bus shelters. There's not a good first and last mile connectivity system for folks who don't have cars. The question is, how will CATS in the northern towns work together to address those issues?
In the past, we have, our services have been designed to bring suburban commuters into the urban core of Charlotte. And we've done that through express bus service and, as I mentioned, into the future with the Red Line commuter rail. But there are very diverse challenges and mobility needs within the communities. For example, someone may live in Huntersville and want to go shopping in Cornelius, or go to a restaurant, or go to a job in Davidson. And so we're working now on first and last mile connections so that people can get from a future Red Line or a current express bus park and ride to their final destination in any of the 3 towns. And that includes a partnership that we are working right now with North Carolina DOT and the town of Davidson for an autonomous vehicle pilot that we hope to launch later on this year that will help us connect those first and last mile connections. One thing that we have been very keenly aware of is not every mobility solution can be solved by a 40-foot CATS bus or larger. And so we have to get very creative and very flexible with the services that we offer in the future. And lastly, working with our towns to provide accessible sidewalk access, shelters that CATS will put in place, and also designing more flexible services is one of the things that I talked with Mayor of Huntersville, new Mayor of Huntersville, Mayor Bales, just last week about. So stay tuned as we continue to roll out these options. We're very focused on meeting the evolving mobility needs of North Meck.
Well, thank you. Look, there's going to be a lot going on, and we've got some great plans in place, and the federal government has provided the dollars, and it sounds like you're going to put them to good use. John?
All right, thank you, Mr. Lewis. And thank you, Michelle Blumenthal, for that last question. Our next question comes from David Leonardi. He would like someone to elaborate on the funds allocated for our aging water system infrastructure.
Congressman, I'm happy to answer that.
All right, Gordon?
Thank you, John, and thank you for the question. In specific, the Congressman mentioned earlier that North Carolina will receive almost $10 billion, just north of $9 billion in new funding for infrastructure. As part of that $9 billion, $1.1 billion has been reserved to the state to repair our water and sewer pipes. Now, again, I know that our friends at the state DOT have mentioned that they're in the works right now. I know that the Charlotte City Council, I know that Mecklenburg County Commission has been in conversations over what to prioritize. But I think all of us saw, particularly in the last couple of months, that our water pipe and our sewer infrastructure is in pretty strong need of investments. So 1.1 billion coming to the state.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Gordon. John?
All right, thank you. Our next question comes from Elliot Glenn. He has a question about toll roads. He'd like to know financially how those toll roads are helping finance infrastructure improvements in Mecklenburg County.
This is Bo Memory with NCDOT, and I'll take a stab at that to answer that. Currently, there are 3 toll facilities in the Mecklenburg area: the 77 express lanes, which were mentioned earlier, the Monroe Expressway, which is mostly in Union County, and then the I-485 express lanes on 485 in the southern half of that facility that are currently under construction. Right now, as I recall, with the I-77 express lanes, there was about $200 million of what is known as bonus allocation, additional dollars that were brought into that region, into that stretch of roadway from that project. The Monroe Expressway couldn't, that alternative, that bypass around US 74 to Union County, it could not have been financed or built if it were not for the tolls. And for the 485 express lanes, that was Charlotte Mecklenburg area has always had a very aggressive and very innovative transportation planning process, and those lanes have been planned for more than a decade to facilitate the movement of people and goods and services in what can be a very congested corridor. And the resources there, the tolls that are generated there by state law, stay on those facilities. And any excess toll revenues or anticipated toll revenues off 485, off Monroe, off the I-77 express lanes have to be reinvested in those corridors.
Okay, thank you, Bo. Appreciate that. I grew up in New Jersey and around New York, and there were tolls everywhere. And I always wondered, once everything was built, why do we have to keep dropping the money in? But thank you so much for your response. John?
Yes, thank you. So we also have a few folks who have written in. They're really interested in the environmental provisions that are in the infrastructure bill. One question is, how will the infrastructure projects reduce CO2 emissions? And another question relates to electric vehicle charging stations. Will the infrastructure bill provide for the construction of more of those?
Well, let me start by saying that that's one of the things that the president talked a lot about as we were talking about this bill, and it was in it being developed. And that is that if we're going to, and we've got a lot of support here in Charlotte and in Mecklenburg, with the transit and with the electric buses, we're hoping to get better air and all the other things that will provide. But I think one of the things that was stressed is that people do need to make sure that there are charging stations. And so I forget what the number was, Gordon, you might remember, but there's going to be a tremendous increase in terms of charging stations across the country, across our county as well. Perhaps that will be some incentive for folks to invest in these electric vehicles. But Gordon, I'm gonna let you speak to the environmental part. We have a lot of environmental issues, especially in this area of the county. And that is a big issue. That was a big issue for Congress in terms of cleaning up the environment and doing some kinds of things so that when we look ahead at our children and our children's children, that the air will be cleaner and the environment will be a whole lot better. So Gordon, you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Congresswoman. To that point, one of the really incredible things about this infrastructure law is that it does take billions of dollars and invests in our communities and in the environment. So for a couple of examples, the Congresswoman noted earlier in her presentation that there's a $6 billion grant program that's been created for local entities to apply for zero and low emission buses. That means that as we look to continue to transition to low and zero emission so that people in the cities and in areas that they're being served are not breathing in carbon dioxide and other emissions from engines, we can continue to fund those advances. Additionally, the Congresswoman mentioned earlier, asbestos in Davidson, other environmental concerns such as the Colonial Pipeline spill. There's $21 billion being put towards environmental cleanup efforts in this bill to make sure that our communities can continue to remain safe and healthy for years to come.
Great, thank you. John?
All right.
I think, isn't that right?
So we have only a couple more minutes left. So we're gonna try and get through as many questions as we can. Next question actually comes from Mayor WASHAM. Has a question about local municipalities and how much funding they will receive from the infrastructure bill. His question in total is, does any of the funding provided by the bill flow directly to our local North Carolina municipalities?
Well, it certainly should. Let me just say that. But it will come through the state, of course, and it will be filtered down to the towns and cities. That's generally how funding comes in. But certainly we don't have an exact, we know what's coming to North Carolina overall, but we don't have the specifics in terms of the breakdown. And Gordon, how are we going to do that? I think I read that it's going to be on a ratio or something like that.
Yeah,
Can you speak
that's
to that?
exactly right, Congresswoman. And Mayor Washington, that's a great question. To answer your question and to build off what the Congresswoman said, the state right now is receiving its first allotments from the Department of Transportation. At the same time, the Department of Transportation is also awaiting further congressional authorization to begin appropriating more funds. Right now, the city, local, county governments, I know have begun conversations. I know the state, DOT, and Bo, perhaps you can speak to this as well, are also beginning their conversations for how the funding will be allocated. But I think the Congresswoman says it best when that she's a stakeholder representative. We are here to help you navigate, to find these resources and to bring them back home. So,
yeah, thank you. I mean, each town, you know, we've heard over and over again that all politics are local, and certainly, and I believe that. And so we rely on talking to our local stakeholders, as Gordon has said. All of you who are listening today, all of you who may be present, even those who have participated on the panel, you are all stakeholders, and we certainly want to hear from you in terms of what the needs are. I think it's been a great conversation. We want to continue this conversation, and I'm hoping that people have asked, well, when's the money going to drop? Well, we're watching that, making sure that it drops soon. Government does not move as fast as we would like it to, but in this particular case regarding the infrastructure and this bill, Congress has already passed it. It is already law. The president signed it, and all we need to do is to deliver the funds to our municipalities and our states, and that's what we're going to be doing. So, John, we'll take one more.
Yes, I do think we have time for one more question, but Bo, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think the mayor asked a great question and a very fair question. And in North Carolina, as far as the funds funneling down to transportation infrastructure, those dollars will be, will go through the state's data-driven prioritization process, much like all federal funds are subject to here by state law. But that formula and the way it divides out across the state ensures that it will be to the benefit of nearly every community in the state.
Great. Okay, thank you, Bo. Thank you for adding to that and for reassuring our listeners and our constituents and all of our stakeholders and elected folks who are going to be, to some extent, responsible for what happens in the local municipalities. Thank you for sharing that information. John, is that it? We're going to just gather the other questions that we have and we'll send answers out. We'll perhaps get them on our website. And it may be that I'll be able to answer one or two of them tonight.
Absolutely. So any questions we don't get to today will be answered later. So please keep sending them in, and our contact information will be given again at the end of the program. So without further ado, I think I will kick it to Finalfi, and we will wrap things up.
Thank you, John. It's been a wonderful morning. Thank you, Congresswoman, for all that you do, and thank all of our participants in this morning's town hall. Before we close, I want to remind you about the Congresswoman's State of the District address. That's this evening at 6:30, also via Zoom. You can RSVP at adams.house.gov/address. adams.house.gov/address. And as always, our district office is available to provide assistance with federal agencies. So give us a call. The number will be in the chat, but it's 704-344-9950. 704-344-9950. We hope that you'll join us this evening via Zoom, and have a wonderful evening. And Congresswoman, if your heart is settled and no closing comments, we'll end our program. All right, thank you so much. We'll see you this evening on Zoom.